You're watching CW Montana. This is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this Thursday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Across the state tonight, some changes coming to Montana fishing and hunting licenses will get you caught up. And coming soon to Montana, direct flights to New York City and Boston will tell you how you can and when you can check out Broadway or take in a game at Fenway Park. But first, a push to bring back passenger rail service across Montana's southern route. Now, the spark to get Amtrak back online is coming from Missoula, where county commissioners are going on the offensive to build support. As MTN's Dennis Bragg reports, they're hoping other counties are willing to sign on and get the train moving.
It's been decades since passenger trains rolled through Missoula and across the southern half of Montana. In the 1980s, this one-time trip drew a crowd of supporters to the old Northern Pacific Depot in hopes of changing minds. And while getting Amtrak back is a tall order, Missoula County Commissioners feel they might have found the means to officially pursue the idea. In recent months, Dave Strohmeyer and his fellow commissioners have become more aggressive in not just building support, but finding a means to seriously study and possibly develop passenger rail service across the old Hiawatha route. Now commissioners are taking it one step further, directing staff to draft a resolution, which could be the first step in establishment of a regional rail authority.
It's typically state government, state legislatures who establish a rail authority like this. Colorado has one. But in the face of lack of leadership by our own very own legislature, it seems since we have this piece of legislation on the books that we could avail ourselves of, it's something that we can do.
Historically, Montana had two passenger rail routes, the Empire Builder across the Highline and the route of the Hiawatha across the southern half of the state. This new push would be to restore that southern route, going through Helena instead of Butte, plus entertaining the idea of an alternate connection running north-south between Billings and Denver. One of the first questions outside of the cost and economic impact would be the cooperative use of the already busy Montana Rail Link and BNSF rails. But Strohmeyer says that's the kind of assignment the rail authority would work on.
So it would be a partnership, yet to be determined exactly what the relationship would be between the railroads and the rail authority, but the rail authority would really be serving this facilitation role, advocacy role, governance role of getting service reestablished.
Although there are many questions ahead, Strohmeyer's fellow commissioners see both a climatical and economic benefit to southern route passenger service, especially between Missoula and Seattle, or for tourism.
And having folks from the Pacific Northwest come here, or a way for folks from the Pacific Northwest to get to Yellowstone in the way they do now via train to get to Glacier via Whitefish, which has become fabulously popular. And given our tourist economy, I feel like this is just the right way to go.
In Missoula, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
Thanks, Dennis. Now, organizers hope to have the resolution ready to start discussion when the state's county leaders meet in Great Falls next month. Well, from trains to planes and some big news for Bozeman. For the first time in its history, JetBlue will take off with new summer and winter nonstop flights to New York and Boston. Airport Director Brian Sprenger is calling it a home run for Bozeman, one that will increase Bozeman's footprint across the entire nation. The flights will be on Saturdays and Wednesdays. The New York JFK flights will operate at least 3 times a week and daily at various times throughout the year. All of the flights will begin in June. And tonight, some good news out of Billings Logan International Airport. Numbers released today show Billings topped its record high passenger and freight totals in 2019. The airport served about 46,000 more passengers last year, surpassing the previous record set in 2018. As for total weight of cargo and mail coming in and out of Billings, that was up 21.5%. Well, another competitor for Montana's open U.S. House seat officially entered the race today. Republican Joe Dooling and his wife Julie Dooling, who's running for re-election in the state legislature, both filed today. Joe Dooling is one of 6 Republicans running for Montana's only House seat, which is open because Greg Gianforte is running for governor. So far, 3 Republicans have paid their filing fee for the House race and 1 Democrat, Kathleen Williams. Dooling says he's unique because he's a working farmer and rancher and because he'd like to make his mark as congressman and nothing else.
I think what resonates for people out there is that I don't want to be the senator or the governor. I'm just going to be our congressman and serve for a period of time until we can build up some leadership and get some of those wants, needs, and wishes that we have from the federal government. And so as we keep turning the seat over and over and over, it just makes no sense.
The other Republicans who filed so far, Deborah Lamb of Livingston and John Ivanovich of Bozeman. Well, several lawmakers, including dueling, gathered at the Montana Historical Society in Helena for the ceremonial signing of Senate Bill 338 today. Now, that's the bill that funded the creation of the Montana Heritage Center.
Having the location chosen, this is just kind of like, the cherry on top of everything, and now we can actually get forward and move with the shovels in the ground.
Governor Steve Bullock and several other lawmakers were also on hand for that signing. The new center will go up where the current Historical Society building is located.
Helena isn't the only one that's going to actually benefit. Every part of Montana is going to. So I'm extremely pleased today with what we did and all the bipartisan effort of both sides of the House working for a good common goal for Montana.
The Montana Heritage Center Committee is set to hold its first design meeting on January 22nd. Well, a Missoula suspect has died following an officer-involved shooting in Missoula yesterday. 35-year-old Frank Koger died at St. Patrick Hospital after he entered a 25-minute standoff with police. This all started Wednesday morning after police received reports of an assault and robbery inside a trailer on Missoula's north side. A man said Koger entered his home, strangled him, and took his property. When officers arrived, they found Koger with a gun, and after nearly 30 minutes of negotiations, officers felt an immediate threat and fired their weapons. Per policy, all 3 officers who shot off their weapons are on paid administrative leave. Well, the 6-year-old Flathead Valley girl struck by a driver when she was getting off the bus last fall is now being transferred to Texas. Jordana Hubble was hit by a car in November after a driver failed to yield to that stopped school bus. Family members have confirmed to MTN that Jordana has been accepted into the Coma Emergence Program in Houston. They leave for Texas on Monday. Her family says she remains in critical condition but is breathing on her own. Now, charges have yet to be filed for the driver who hit Jordana, pending toxicology reports. Well, if you like to hunt, listen up. Fish, Wildlife and Parks is making some changes to your hunting and fishing licenses. Licenses and carcass tags will now be printed on normal size paper, so you can print your own from home. And hunters can now apply for licenses and permits online or at an FWP office. Mail-in applications will no longer be accepted. Now, these changes will speed up the process. Drawing results will now be available 2 weeks after the application deadline rather than 6. Well, chronic wasting disease is a fatal protein disease that affects the nervous systems of deer, elk, and moose. It was first confirmed here in Montana in 2017. Now, this week, state leaders learned the only way to handle it is to take it on head on. MTN's John Riley reports.
On Monday, the Montana Environmental Quality Council heard testimony from chronic wasting disease experts from Wyoming and Colorado who shared their advice on managing the prion disease. Dr. Mike Miller with Colorado Division of Wildlife has been studying CWD for the past 35 years and encourages Montana to continue to have an active approach towards its management.
There was about a 10-plus year period when we really de-emphasized our attention on chronic wasting disease. We looked away, and that was probably one of the more serious mistakes that we made, because it turns out the disease doesn't go away. It doesn't stop doing what it's doing, and you ignoring it doesn't make it any better.
Wyoming Game and Fish Department disease specialist Hank Edwards warns that CWD can have big impacts on game population and health when it isn't managed correctly.
CWD negative herds may bounce back very quickly, where CWD positive herds may linger on for much longer at low population.
Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks also gave the council an update on the state's current response to CWD, saying the state found the disease in places they didn't expect, which means they need to assume the disease is more widely distributed and work on getting that message out to more hunters.
We find that we're still having a hard time getting through to hunters. There's a lot of hunters that you talk to at check stations and things, and they said, what's CWD? Never heard about it.
Reporting in Helena, John Riley, MTN News.
Thanks, John. Now, Fish, Wildlife and Parks also says it is working to update the CWD management plan to incorporate what's been learned over the past few years. A new malt business now open just south of Butte. And we're not talking ice cream. The team from Montana Craft Malt cut the ribbon today with help from Governor Steve Bullock. The plant will process Montana-grown malt and distribute it to craft beer brewers across the country. Now, the team has been preparing for this day for more than a year.
This is a really important time for us. This week actually is when we finally pivot from construction into operations. It's been a long time coming. The team couldn't be more excited, and I could not be more proud of what we've accomplished.
Now, the plant has 7 employees now, with a plan to have 15 within the year. Well, Montana's 2020 Teacher of the Year is now one of 4 finalists for National Teacher of the Year. Linda Ross teaches science courses at Baker High School and told us today she's shocked, excited, humbled, and terrified all at the same time. Well, Ross heads to Washington, D.C. in mid-February for 2 days of interviews.
Well, I hope to advocate for teacher recruitment and retention in rural areas and also rural reservation schools. That's kind of my platform. Since 2016, they started with some programs to increase retention and recruitment, and they've been really successful. So I'm hoping to help advocate for those, and hopefully they can even get started in other states using Montana as a model.
Well, Ross has been teaching for 13 years, the past 6 at Baker High School, where she teaches biology, anatomy, chemistry, and physiology. So far, Montana's only National Teacher of the Year winner was Kalispell's Richard Nelson, who earned that honor back in 1956. Still to come on the MTN 9 o'clock news, a man's quest to find his birth mother in Montana has a happy ending. We will fill you in. But first, how's the weather looking, Bob?
Jeanelle, finally got some warmer temperatures in eastern Montana. Finally crawled out of the basement of the sub-zero range. Now everybody got above zero, but now in western Montana, a new snowstorm is starting to move in. We'll tell you all about that coming up after the break.